Hello people. Today I just would like to encourage a few people, especially if you feel you have a calling on your life and God is preparing you for something. I have a testimony that I'm being reminded of very often when I see this guitar. And I think back of that day of my life when God has called me for the youth ministry. And with a very long story, I ended up in a youth band. And I can remember we were practicing and things were going very well. I was playing the electric guitar, my friend was singing and playing acoustic, I had another friend that played the bass and the drummer. And while we were practicing, I felt this is my comfort zone. I am with people, I didn't feel nervous, I was prepared. And then youth started. We didn't have much children yet in the youth. They weren't even youth, they were still in primary school. The 4 or 5 that were there. And I can remember I stand on the stage and I was supposed to start with the song. And suddenly I get very nervous. I would look at the bridge of the guitar and it would start going like this. And I didn't even know where the chord was I supposed to start with. And I start strumming and I hear this is not even a chord combination that I'm playing. And I stopped and suddenly I just tell the people, oh, come stand in front, let's just stand in front here. And then I start playing, still very nervous, but at least it went well. A few years after that, I told my friend this, and he said he didn't even notice that I made a mistake. But I was reminded that what I was before I started. I was a very nervous child. I had an English friend, and my native language is Afrikaans. He never was interested in learning the language. He only wanted to learn this one phrase. What is nervous child in Afrikaans? And he would always call me that because of how nervous I would have been. In front of adults or in crowds, I would have been this nervous child. And I forgot about that until I was standing in front of that crowd. And I was very disappointed because I knew God called me. And I asked him and I prayed about it. Why if you called me, am I so nervous? And he answered with a dream. I can remember I was standing behind curtains looking at a wall. And there was a few children there, not even a lot of children. And I was supposed to perform in front of them with a guitar like this one. And I thought, yes, when I woke up there's no way, I'm not going to be alone when I'm performing. That's not even what I wanted. Because I really had a passion to serve God. And my idea of serving God was at the back of the church, behind the soundboard, and mixing the music, not in front, never in front of people. But when he called me for youth ministry, that started changing. And through the years, I ended up in a small town, and there was a couple of children. And the one guy also had a heart for the youth. And he heard I played guitar because I was living in a small flat, me and my wife. And he said, well, you play guitar, why don't you join us? Let's do something with the youth. And I can remember I was holding a guitar similar to this. This guitar is actually also have a lot of memories. This is the guitar I started learning to play on many years back. Like 20 years back when I was still in school. My friend lived next door to me. When I visited him, I would start just playing on it. He showed me a few chords. And this guitar I bought from him, and then eventually I gave it back because I ended up with like 7 guitars, and then eventually one day he gave it back to me. Also very testimonial situations, and I appreciate it because this reminds me of where God called me from. Anyway, so I can remember when I was standing in the stage and we were all talking about this band that we want to start, me and this one guy, only him and me, and we would like involve the children and find out who plays drums and other instruments. But back then I didn't even have an electric guitar even anymore, just had this box guitar. But I had still this thing of, we need a band. I need a comfort zone. I cannot do this alone. And I can remember standing on the stage of that hallway of the church, and I looked past the curtains, and it looked exactly like the dream I had. And immediately, that was like 5-6 years after that I see this hallway that looks exactly like in the dream when I was looking past the curtains. And immediately that was kind of a feeling that I had, being all nervous, but then I kind of know what God is actually telling me now, what's going to happen there. And I went back home and I looked at this guitar and I held it in my hand and I was praying and I said, God, what must I do? Because my heart says there must be a band. I don't want to do this alone. And God answered with these words, what do you have in your hand? And immediately I remember Moses and the story about Moses. And it's like I said, God, okay, I can ask for an Aaron that will do the singing while I'm playing, or I should have faith. And I started off with the guitar and God blessed the situation. The moment I started singing and playing with the guitar, with the songs that they wanted us to rehearse, because we all will play in the church while I'm playing the guitar, there was no feeling of nervousness. And while I played the one, finally after a few practices, I thought back on that dream and how nervous I was. And it's like I feel God tells me that's why David had to fight the bear and the wolf or the lion. There was definitely a lion. Yeah, he had to go through preparation. And God prepare us, even though you might stand in this situation where you feel you're not bold enough or you're also nervous. Just trust God. He will direct your path and He will prepare you for His purpose. And that was very encouraging for me at that stage, because I know when God gives me a dream, there's a purpose for that dream. Especially if you get a dream and you wake up and you realize this dream actually means something. And while you're going through steps in your life, you don't have to answer right away. But when you end up where God has prepared you for, then you realize He was with you all the time. There are certain things we have to overcome. And He's with us with that, because that gives us our testimony. So I hope this encourages you. If you're in that situation. Never stop what God has called you for, no matter how discouraging it can be. It will be okay eventually, and you will see. And you will appreciate what God has led you through. Because whatever He does is for your good. We might not see it now, but we will see it in the future. Have a blessed day, and I hope this encourages you. Goodbye.